Thank you. So, my brother and I have both been living outside of the country where we grew up for quite some time now. And wherever we go, live or work, our mother has two beautiful traditions. First of all, she always sends us mail, including written cards and Dutch delights such as chocolate and licorice. And secondly, in order for her to understand where we live and work, she asks us an infinite number of questions over Skype, such as, how firm are people's handshakes? And what is the taste of milk? What does the city smell like? And how does the vegetation look like next to the side road? So, when my brother was working for an international aid organization in Afghanistan a few years ago, my mother decided, of course, to send him mail with lots of chocolate. But she also sent him something he had never received before. After hearing the many stories over Skype about the dryness and lack of greenery, and the grayish color tone of the endless mountain landscapes, she decided to send flower seeds. Daffodil seeds. And so it goes. My brother somewhat patiently planted the seeds, and voila. And how small or subtle the end result might be, the daffodils opened a climate of beauty and wonder. Colleagues, locals, and neighbors, they were all happily distracted and welcomed by the elegance of the yellow flowers. And it gave them feelings of imagination, hope, and pleasure. It also took their mind away of the turmoil, and it created a sense of normality. So within a destructive space, there is a place for beauty, for creation, and for construction. Throughout my work as a theater scholar at the University of Victoria, but also as a theater practitioner in war zones and conflict zones in developing countries, I have observed and seen many daffodil moments. Creating life, understanding life, and making meaning out of life are very important parts of the arts, including in theater. And however small or subtle these daffodil moments might be, in environments that are surviving consciously or unconsciously for the purpose of destruction rather than creation, theater resonates with people on a deeper level. I'm here to talk today about the power of arts, about the power of theater in developing countries, in war zones and conflict zones. But I'm also here to talk about the practitioners and artists working in these spaces. And I hope that this talk brings knowledge closer to home. So what can we learn from these places and practitioners? And how can we implement that in our lives? I've always been very fascinated why people make theater when their daily income is less than $1. But also why people continue making theater when the bombs are falling out of the sky in war zones and conflict zones. Well, the answer is pretty simple. Artists make theater all over the world, including countries that have a colonial history, civil wars, post-conflict settings, refugee camps, countries that have been invaded by foreign armies, global cities that face the rise of unemployment, drug wars, gang wars. What all these artists have in common is one very important thing in life, and that's growth. How big or small, how loud or visible, how hidden or silent, all these artists work towards that one thing that keeps communities going, and that is growth. Growth in the broadest sense of the word. That can be a moment of hope, celebration, empowerment, social justice, community building, long-term thinking. And the concept of growth has been made visible through the practitioner's capacity of four important elements. That is empathy, collaboration, joy, and beauty. And with empathy, I mean that compassionate artists feel for one another. Collaboration is that how they work together towards that one performance. Joy is the laughter, the humor, the fun they have on making these performances. And the beauty is that rather vague term that draws people in, that welcomes people. You have to really understand that these artists, they are continuously searching for sources of support. They often feel very isolated, they work more than one job, and they have survived many oppressive regimes. Some of them actually live in communities that lack basic essentials, such as clean water, sewage systems, electricity, but also lack of secondary education or urban planning, social development. And many practitioners themselves express that they feel that they're being perceived as dirt and unwanted, and that they're being represented as people that are vulnerable in joining criminal gangs, that they're behaving according to a culture of poverty. But these are actually the people that are always very positive and engaged in their local community. I've observed their capacity to create a sense of belonging, to make unwantedness their safe home, and to foster community spirit. These artists create passionately and positively while resisting a model that constructs communities in need. And that still intrigues me, even after 11 years when I first became acquainted with the work of Nicaraguan artists. So we're going to go a bit on a journey right now. It's 2004, and we're heading to Nicaragua, Central America, to the beautiful northern part of the country, where we meet up with a theater artist who has lived her whole life in an impoverished neighborhood. And she takes us on a tour through her community. So she does that during the day, but also later at night. And the difference is mind-blowing. The kids are still on the street late at night, and some with small weapons, others seemingly waiting for someone to purchase their presents. And the theater artist explains to us that the kids sometimes don't have a place to go to after school, or they don't go to school at all. And some of them, actually many of them, they are forced to deal with a lot of mature issues, and they don't really have the freedom to just be a kid, to have fun and to play around. So her dream is setting up a theater school, an after-school program or a weekend program for these children, just to have fun again. And so she did. After a lot of hard work and effort and a lot of patience, she set up a theater school, which is still going strong today, which is really amazing. She didn't have to do that, but she made a very conscious decision to support the growth of her community. We're staying in Nicaragua, different place, but the same year. 4 young girls are working for are rehearsing a theater performance called The Princess That Cannot Smile. And the rehearsals take place 3 afternoons in a medical clinic in one of the slums. And the medical clinic is closed on Sundays, so that the place is theirs. But the other days, they're actually rehearsing next to the patients, waiting for their doctor's appointment in a very small and narrow corridor. And during the very first rehearsals, the girls, they don't talk a lot about acting styles or aesthetic or genres. They immediately express the necessity of a social message, preferably about sexual abuse or incest. Many friends of the young 4 have been abused by family members in their past, and their aim really is to use theater as a communication tool to talk about this taboo. The performance is shown in various places, but mainly in places where the message will be heard, such as schools, orphanages, and childcare centers. The girls really didn't have to choose this topic, but they consciously decided to make their community aware of a problem and to support the most vulnerable. Both examples really illustrate the immaculate compassion Nicaraguan artists feel for their peers, but also explicitly they're trying to find ways to preserve a sense of self-worth and dignity through the arts. We're going southwards. We're going to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, to one of the favelas. And favela is the Portuguese-Brazilian word for slums or shanty towns at Brazilian theater school. And many factors have reinforced the intricate relationship between the favela communities, the state, and the drug gangs. But when we enter the school, it is as warm and beautiful and colorful as the country itself. Everybody greets you and welcomes you. You hear sounds of rap and hip-hop and baile funk, and people are practicing capoeira, dances, movements. People are rehearsing for shows and making video games. The space is clearly defined by the concept of home, a social sense of belonging, familiarity, safety, and identity. And this security really allows the students to feel safe and wanted, as opposed to the risks and challenges they face outside of the walls. The school's professionalism is tangible through the students' mentality, the rules, and the discipline. The directors profoundly challenge the students to become educated as human artists. And what that means is whatever they become, famous soap actors, engineers, plumbers, cooks, or even astronauts, they're all being educated as respectful citizens, as humane artists. And when I talk with the students in this theater school, they all describe feelings of joy and happiness and pleasure. And all of them describe the school as a beautiful, safe haven not only because of the absence of bullets, but because they can freely grow as human beings and artists. Many scholars have argued that beauty can save lives. So when you see beauty as a greeting, people, for a moment, lose their capacity to harm. So when you're in the presence of something beautiful, it greets you and it welcomes you, and it's not only something that you want, but also the world you're now joining wants. The Brazilian theater school has clearly saved students' lives. The theoretical encounters have prevented them from continuing their career in the favela gangs. And the beauty and joy they have experienced throughout their time at the school has given them a reason to change their direction in life and to lose their capacity to harm. The last stop we make today is in the Democratic Republic of Congo. African artists here are actually inviting the audience to join and to participate in the spectacles. And the artist methodology is very cultural specific and mindful to the available artistic resources and cultural expressions. Before the artists actually show this performance to the audience, they go to their own local communities and they talk with the community members about the most prevalent social issues. They then do an extensive amount of research with the community members, and based on these facts and all the interviewing they do, they create a performance with the community and for the community. And this rather engaging and entertaining and joyful form of theater has developed a deep listening between local chiefs and government officials, understanding between local tribes, and perhaps a moment of hope for everybody involved in that war. A few weeks ago, I saw a picture in a newspaper of a refugee camp in Macedonia. 2 adults with some funny costumes and white powder on their faces. Children and elderly and parents were dancing around them. It was perhaps a moment that they were distracted from their atrocities. It was perhaps a moment that they felt the cultural power that is denied to them in reality. Theater transcends. In destructive places where a horrendous physical world exists, theater transcends. Before I go, I wish all of you a daffodil moment. A moment that you just wonder, and that you are aware of the beauty around you, and your ability to develop growth in your life, how big or small that daffodil moment might be. Thank you.